Jai Hind everybody. My name is Nandita Goyal and I am working as an assistant professor at Department of Information Technology at AKGEC Ghaziabad. So today I will be discussing the topic XML Parsers, which is a topic from web technology. The contents that I will be covering during this lecture include what exactly is XML parser and why do we use that. Then what are the various types of XML parsers which are available. In that we will be discussing into detail the object-based parsers and event-based parsers. After that we will be discussing the object-based parser, which is XML DOM parser in detail, and then in event-based parsers I will be discussing StAX parser and StAX parser. At the end we will be differentiating between the DOM parser and the StAX parser. So these are the contents which I will be covering during this lecture. So to start with the parser, that why do we use a parser or what exactly is a parser? First of all, we will see what exactly is processing in XML. If we have a software that reads an XML document and takes the actions accordingly, this type of processing is known as processing of a XML document. So whenever we have a XML document, we will always be doing the processing part. That is, there will be a software or a program which is going to read that document and then it will take an action according to the document. So this program which actually reads and processes the XML document, this is known as a XML parser. So we have two terms till now, that is processing the XML document and then the XML processor. So processing basically means reading and understanding what is there in the document and taking the actions accordingly, and the software which does this is known as a XML processor. Now coming to the parser part. The fundamental XML processor which actually reads the XML document and then it actually converts the document into some internal representation which can be used by other programs or subroutines. This is actually known as a parser. So if I talk about a parser, it is nothing but it is a fundamental XML processor which is reading the XML document and then it is converting the document into some representation which can be used by other programs or subroutines. This is actually an important component of a XML processing program. So we have a processor and then the fundamental processor is my parser. This fundamental processor or fundamental part of the processor is actually converting the document into some internal structure. And this structure can be further utilized by other programs or subroutines. So till now we have discussed that what exactly is a processor which is reading a XML document and taking the actions as per the document requirement, and the XML parser is the fundamental XML processor which is actually converting the document into some internal structure or representation which can be utilized by other programs or subroutines. Now moving to the types of XML parsers. So the XML parsers can be broadly classified into two classes, that is object-based parsers and event-based parsers. So we will be talking into detail about object and event-based parsers, but if I talk about the example, the object-based parser includes DOM, which stands for Document Object Model, and in event-based parsers we will be going into details of SAX, that is Simple API for XML document, and then another parser name is StAX. So these are the two parsers which we will be discussing in event-based parsers. So now coming to the object-based parsers, the most important example in an object-based parser is a DOM parser. So DOM stands for Document Object Model. So what does a DOM document actually is? A DOM document is nothing but it is a collection of nodes or pieces of information which are actually organized in some hierarchy. So whenever we talk about a DOM document always talks about some hierarchy. So it is a tree based structure. And it actually defines a standard way in which we can access and modify the XML documents. So to emphasize on the point that whenever we talk about a object based model or a DOM model, we always talk about a structure which is given as a hierarchy or a tree. So whenever we need to modify or access any of the elements of the hierarchy, we can do that by using a DOM model. So as I have already said that using a DOM model, a programmer can easily modify or delete the contents of the XML document. A programmer may even add or create some new elements in the document. The elements what I am talking about here is include the text as well as the attributes for the elements, and they all together are known as the nodes. So a DOM model will consist of a tree structure which will contain the nodes, which are nothing but the elements along with their content, that is text and attributes. And using this DOM model, a programmer can easily modify, delete the content of a XML document. So here we just take an example of how a DOM model will actually work. Now suppose I have an example of a XML file. I am just showing the structure of this XML file. So I have the root element as college in this file. This college node contains two other nodes, that is class and title, and then this title contains gender. So the root element or root node is college, which contains class and title. Then the title element further contains the gender. So if I want to draw a tree like hierarchy for this specific example, so I have the college at the top, which is my root node or root element. Now I have two more nodes which are connected to the college node, that is the class node and the title node, which I had specified here. And then for the title I even have a gender node. So here I have a gender. So this is how my DOM model actually converts the entire XML document into a tree-like hierarchy. So this is an example which is showing the tree-like hierarchy for a XML document. Now here again we have taken an example of a XML file. The name of the file is college. So this is a college.xml file. So this is the XML coding for this particular file. I have a college node, then inside the college node I have another node, name is branch category. Since I can have my own tags in XML, so first tag which I am using is a college tag, which is my root element. Then I have another tag which is branch category, and here I am specifying the branch category as IT. I am assigning this value to this tag. Inside the branch category I have another tag, that is students, and the number of students which I am specifying for this particular branch category is 60, and then here I have closed my students tag. Inside the same branch category, one tag was students tag, to which I have assigned the value 60, and the another one is HOD tag, to which I have assigned value or name ABC, and then I have closed my HOD tag. And here this branch tag is closed here. So I have a college node. Inside the college node I have a branch node, to which I have assigned the value IT. Then inside this branch I have students tag, to which I have assigned the value 60, and a HOD tag, to which I have assigned the value ABC. So since this is my first node inside the branch category, the student, so this is actually, this 0 is signifying the level. So this is the first tag to which I am adding the details. Further adding details for the branch category. Now the previous one was branch category IT. Now I have another branch category which I have named as ECE. So now in this again I have two tags, that is students and HOD. So students I have again assigned a different value, that is 100, and I have closed my students tag. Now I have another tag HOD to which I have assigned a value XYZ, and here I have closed this HOD tag. Then I have closed this branch tag. And finally at the last we can see that I have even closed my college tag. So inside college tag I am having two branches. The first category was IT and the second one was ECE. In the first branch category I had assigned students as 60 and HOD as ABC. So the level was 0. Now at level 1 for another branch category, that is ECE, I have assigned the value as students 100 and as HOD XYZ, and I have finally closed my college tag. So this is the entire XML file which I am having. Now since I am saying that using a parser or specifically a DOM parser, a programmer can add, delete or at least access the elements from the XML file. So we will be looking further that how using a DOM parser we will able to access this data. So now to get the value of XML document using the DOM parser, what I have done, I have simply taken this T and I have assigned XML doc which I was using dot. Now this thing, get elements by tag name, this is actually a method. By using this methods I am able to access my tag with the name student. So this is my tag name. So here I am actually trying to access the elements for the tag name students, and here the 0 is specifying the level. So child nodes 0 dot node value. Now here I am trying to access the child nodes at the level 0 with the tag name students, and this node value, this is actually the property of DOM, XML DOM. So we have various methods as well as various properties of XML DOM. So this is a method get elements by tag name, and this is the property of a XML DOM parser. So now just going into the details, we will see. Now we have the tag name students and I am trying to access the child nodes at level 0 and I want to access the node value for this. So if I go back to this document, so where I have to get the tag by name student. So this is the students tag, and since I have to get the tag value at level 0, so this was my level 0, this was the first entry which we had done, and I want to get the node value. So the node value here is 60. So the output of my code here should be 60. So this is how I am getting this output. Suppose in place of having this 0, I have converted it to 1. Then child node now if I have modified the code this way, that I have tried to access the same tag students and I have used the method get elements by tag name students, but now what I have done, I have used the level 1. So and the same property I had used, that is node value. So what would have happened? So it would have not accessed this because this is my level 0. So it would have accessed this level 1. So the value of students here is node value is 100. So if this would have been the code, the output would have been 100. So this is how this is working. Now we have certain XML DOM properties, like in the previous example we had used the property node value to get the value of the node we were talking about. Like the same way we have various other properties like x dot node name. Here x is nothing but the node object, that is the current node to which we are referring to. So if I write this way, x dot node name, here node name is the property. So this will give me actually the name of the node x. Same way I have another property that is node value. So how do I access this x dot node value? So this is actually going to give me the value of node x, the one which we had used in the previous example. Now we have a third property that is x dot parent node. Now suppose I have a node x and I have a parent node for this node x, and even I have certain child nodes. Okay, now if I have this type of structure, I have a node x, I have a node y which is acting as the parent node for x, and I have two child nodes for x, that is z and b. Now if I am using this property x dot parent node, so this is going to get me the parent of node x. So for this particular example, what I'll get a value y, because the parent of node x is y. So this is how this property is going to work. Same way, if I have x dot child nodes, it is going to return child nodes for x. It will return me the child nodes for x. So now for this particular example, if I use x dot child nodes, what will be the value which will be returned? Both the child nodes, that is z and b. Okay. And at last we have x dot attributes. This is my property, DOM property. So this actually returns the attributes associated with x. For example, for this x we have certain category. So it is going to return me this category as a attribute. So in total we have these 5 DOM properties which can be used to access the nodes in a XML document. That is the node name if I want to access my node using the name, then node value if I want to access the value of the node, then I have parent node which helps me to get the parent of a particular node x, x dot child nodes which helps me to get the child nodes associated with x, and x dot attributes. So these are the DOM properties. Then we have various XML DOM methods, like in the example we had used this method, get elements by tag name. So this is one of the methods which we had earlier used and which can be used to access the elements in a XML document by using the tag name. So if you remember here in the tags we had the tag student in our example. So we had used this students in place of tag. So actually we replace this name with the tag name, whatever tag name we have in the XML document. Now another method which we can use is x dot append child node. So this method we can use if we are interested in adding any child node to x. Now suppose I have this x, the same example which we had taken earlier. We had a parent node y for this x and we had two child nodes z and b. Now suppose you want to add one more child node to this. So suppose that is a. So what we can use, x dot append child node, and in place of this node I'll write a. So it is going to append one more child node with x, that is with the name a. Now same way, if you want to remove any child node from the XML document, you can give x dot remove child node and then the name of the child node. Suppose I want to remove z, so I can give z. So now there will be only two child nodes left here, that is a and b for this x. So this is how we can add or remove child nodes. So these are the methods which can be used by a DOM parser for modifying or adding details to a XML document. So we had discussed that what is exactly a object based model, and in that object based model we had discussed about DOM, that how a DOM parser works. Now we will be looking into the StAX parser. So StAX parser is actually a event based parser, that is it is going since it is a parser, so obviously it is going to go through the XML document line by line, but here the the triggering point will be the events which will be encountered by the parser while going through the event. That is why it is known as a event based parser. So a SAX parser is different from a DOM parser because a SAX doesn't load the entire file into the memory. If I talk about a DOM parser, it actually converts the DOM document into an internal tree-like representation, and once it has converted the entire document into a tree-like structure, it actually loads that entire structure into the memory. But if I talk about a SAX parser, it is not going to load the complete document into the memory. So it doesn't load the complete XML document into the memory, but a DOM parser does this. So how it does the parsing? It actually parses the XML document line by line, and it is triggered by different events. That is why it is known as a event based parser. So what these events can be? The events can be like if it encounters a opening tag, or it encounters a closing tag, or even if we have some character data or comments. So these are the events through which a SAX parser can be triggered, and this is the major reason why we call a SAX parser as a event based parser, because it is based upon triggering of the events, and it doesn't load the entire XML document into the memory. So whenever we are having a XML source file, we also need to register a handler. We need to register any handler which is actually going to extend this default handler class. Why? Because we need to handle the event. So this default handler class has different methods through which you can handle the events. So this default handler class will provide the different callbacks out of which we are interested in. So as we have already discussed in SAX parser that it is going to be triggered by the events, and the events can be a start of the tag or the ending of the tag or any character if it encounters. So these can be the methods for this which are there in the default handler class. The start element, this is nothing but it will trigger an event when we have a start of the tag, okay, and same way when we will have a end of the tag, we can make use of this method, end element method. And same way if we encounter some text or some comments, so what we can use? Characters, okay. So when we have a default class, default handler class, we can make use of these methods for this, that is start element, end element and characters, which is basically used to handle these events. Now if we talk about the features of SAX, SAX parser will never create any internal structure like we have in a DOM parser. So this is the first feature, that there is no internal structure which is created by SAX parser. Then SAX parser is a event based parser which will work the same way as the events are handled in any Java program. So these events, these event based SAX parsers will work the same way as the events are handled in any Java program. Now talking about the advantages of SAX parser, as I have already said that when we are using a DOM parser, it is going to create the entire internal structure for a XML document, and then this entire structure is going to be loaded into the memory. But with a SAX parser, it is very simple and it is not going to load the entire document into the memory, and that is why it makes efficient use of memory. It is very simple to use and it has efficient use of memory. Even its runtime is too fast and it can be used to work with bigger files or documents. Why the runtime is fast? Because it is going to read the line, it is going to read the entire document line by line. So wherever it will encounter an event, that will trigger it and it is going to handle that event. So it is very fast as compared to a DOM model. Then what are the disadvantages? Even we have certain disadvantages associated with it. We have no random access to any XML document since it is processed in a forward only manner. the control will go only in one direction, that is the forward only manner. So, you cannot randomly access any element as we were able to do in a DOM parser. Another thing, if we need to keep track of data that the parser has seen or changed, the order of items has been changed, then we have to write the code and store the data on our own. It will not be done automatically, that has to be done by the programmer. So, these are the two major disadvantages associated with the StAX parser. Now, coming to the third category, that is StAX parser. So, StAX parser stands for Streaming API for XML. It is actually different from the DOM parser in the same way as StAX is, because StAX and StAX are both event based parsers, whereas DOM is a object based parser. The StAX parser actually, now if I talk about some differences between StAX and StAX, because both are event based parser. So, StAX parser actually pushes the data, whereas if I talk about a StAX parser, it pulls the required data from the XML document. The StAX parser maintains a cursor at the current position in the document, which actually allows, so one thing which we need to remember, that with the StAX parser we have a cursor at the current position, and this allows us to extract the content which is available at the cursor, which was not possible in a StAX parser, whereas StAX parser issues events as and when certain data is encountered. But with in a StAX parser, we have a cursor at a current position, and we can even extract the content which we need to extract. So, if I talk about a StAX parser, it is something in between the DOM and the StAX parser. So, it is actually acting as a median between the two. StAX is a bidirectional API. Like if I talk about StAX, it was only reading the document. If you required to write anything in the XML document, then another API was required. But in a StAX parser, it is a bidirectional API, meaning that we can both read and write the documents, which was not possible in a StAX parser. And it is actually, it was created to address the limitations in both the previously available APIs, that is StAX and DOM. So, it was actually created to act as a median between the previously existing two parsers. Now, coming to the comparison between a object based parser, that is DOM, and a event based parser, that is StAX. So, the first difference is DOM stands for document object model, whereas StAX stands for simple API for XML parsing. So, in another way we can say that it is actually a DOM parser is a object based parser, whereas StAX is a event based parser. Now, another difference we have that DOM needs a lot of memory, whereas StAX does not need a lot of memory. So, as we had already discussed that in a DOM parser, the entire document will be loaded into the memory in the form of a tree-like structure, whereas in a StAX, we are not going to load the entire document into the memory. It is going to read the document line by line, and wherever the event is encountered, only there it is going to apply the parsing. So, this is the major reason that due to which DOM needs a lot of memory, whereas StAX does not need a lot of memory. We can even say that DOM is a memory, in DOM we does not use a, we use a lot of memory. Okay. So, it is memory inefficient. A DOM model is memory inefficient, whereas a StAX model is a memory efficient model. Now, the DOM parser is basically based on object based model, whereas a StAX parser is based on a event based model. DOM is faster, StAX is slower. It is going to load the entire XML document into the memory, whereas StAX will load only the part of the document into the memory, due to which DOM is not suitable for very large XML files, because it is going to utilize the memory and this will decrease the overall performance of the system. Whereas if we talk about SAX, since it is faster and it does not require to load the entire document into the memory, it is also suitable for large XML files. It creates, DOM creates internal structure memory. It is always going to create the internal structure memory, whereas if we talk about SAX, it is not going to create any internal structures in the memory. So, these are some of the main differences between DOM and SAX. So, that was all from my side. Thank you.